right, guys, welcome to another week of the War Room. Today we're going to talk about all things fantasy, with the fantasy season coming and going very quickly. Who was the MVP of the fantasy season this split?
All of Immortals. Just the entire team. Like,
Basically,
they're number one in every single position. Their team was the best team overall. Like, if you drafted Immortals, you had to have placed high in your fantasy league.
Nick, I think you know a few things about drafting Immortals players.
I may or may not have had the two most valuable players in all of fantasy, Welter and Belter.
How did that happen?
Because I'm good, and everybody else is bad.
I think a lot of us, especially in Scrub League, were overvaluing TSM's like on paper perfect roster and NRG's pretty clean looking roster, and thought like those two teams would do well, and maybe thought we can give up some Immortals for more players from these what looked to be really solid teams.
Yeah, like honestly, the three teams going into the split, Immortals, NRG, and TSM, two of those teams did not score a lot of points.
TSM scored.
Energy was tough on the point scenario.
TSM was worse.
TSM
had
really
their
bad.
good weeks where they went crazy, but Yellowstar went from the top scoring support in EU last season to just really.
See, I gotta say,
Same man.
I drafted Yellowstar.
Like third pick Yellowstar.
Yeah, I drafted Yellowstar like second round, like because of where my where I was positioned in my draft. And he was outscoring, like let's know that he was outscoring all supports. Literally every season since he's been in the LCS, and this is the one split he decides he's not going to score.
And that should talk to Paul's overall quality of fantasy play, I think.
And I still did better than Sean.
See, I was gonna say my MVP was definitely Piglet. I mean, this guy, it didn't matter if Team Liquid was doing well or not well. From a pure fantasy perspective, this guy was gold.
I think it's worth mentioning for Piglet too that coming into the split, Team Liquid had that whole 10-man roster thing, and it wasn't clear. I had them really low down in NA because we had so many of these good teams. And then Piglet came in on a 10-man roster, and I thought, is he even going to play every week? There's no way I'm starting this guy. And he's up there in the top 5 of the whole split.
Honestly, when Sean drafted him, I was making fun of him on Skype. I was like, you're crazy. 10-man roster, man. Like, how could you decide to gamble on this
The
guy?
real heroes, and everybody knows it, it's not Immortals. Actually, G2 was super heroic, because not only did they go undrafted, and so a lot of their players were actually available to be picked up in probably a lot of leagues. Their players just every single week would come out of nowhere. Even they played good teams, they played bad teams, they were consistently scoring, and I actually think that they played up to the level of their opponents. Like, you could put them in a week that they had a really hard week, and you could still expect them to perform well, whereas you couldn't say the same for other teams that still scored highly if they went up against a tough opponent. So G2, heroes of the split.
Biggest disappointment.
Going into the split, I thought if you looked at Power of Evil, he's coming from UOL. He put up good points or decent points on UOL last split. He's joined what had to be the best team in Europe coming into the split. And
what happened?
I remember
was a huge
seeing
disappointment
him
in
on the
fantasy.
waiver wire in our league at week 5, and I was like, this is Bizarro World. Like, what is Power of Evil doing on the waiver wire?
For me, it was, this comes from a very personal, painful place, but it is Svenskeren. And Svenskeren was like, going in, TSM's roster was so good. And it's not that Svenskeren was like a spectacular player last season, but I thought, he's a jungler, he's gonna be on a solid team. And even though TSM performed okay towards the middle of the season, even in TSM's best performing weeks, Svenskeren was still putting up like 20 points a week, not a game a week, and it was rough. Like, he would just die so often in the early game that he could not make up for it by the end.
I still look at that roster and I'm like, on paper, still now, looking at that roster, you're like, how do they lose games? Like, how?
I still can't count them out for playoffs because I feel like they have so much raw talent that what if they just figure it out and they could be the best team in
Guys,
NA?
it's been 9 weeks.
It's been 9 weeks.
And
But what
still
if?
on paper, it's one of the greatest teams
They
in
threw
NA.
a 10K lead, a
10K.
10K gold lead with Baron. I don't know.
They've thrown more than one of
This
those.
is like an abusive relationship that they won't let go, but like TSM keeps hurting
Paul's
you.
in an abusive relationship with
I
TSM.
drafted Yellowstar second round, a support player.
I'm with
second
you.
round.
I'm with you 100%.
Like,
Svenskeren and Yellowstar.
Who were some of the guys coming into the season that didn't really have a lot of expectations, but really delivered in a big way?
UOL.
Yeah.
You
Steal back, steal back, steal back. He's my MVP for sure. He put up so many points and no one expected it, even against the best teams. So he was my
Except
MVP.
for you.
No, what do you mean? I had him.
Yeah, I said you expected it.
Well, I actually didn't. No, because here's the thing.
Oh yeah, because you draft your
I
Nightmare
was gonna
Origin
say,
roster.
Okay, when I drafted, I first picked Origin in top lane, in mid lane, in support, and then I left AD carry for like last, and that's like the worst thing you could do in fantasy, right? So I got Steel back because no one really picked him up, and that was the best mistake / decision I have ever made.
Let me tell you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The real overperformer for Fantasy this split, the numbers don't look that impressive, but when you consider what he did to other players around him, was Seraph. If you had Team Impulse players when Seraph was playing for them, or Renegade players when Seraph was playing for them, statistically, they were much better.
That last week of Renegades.
The last
man.
week of Renegades was insane. Team
it's
Impulse had some
beautiful.
really great fantasy weeks, and he only played 9 games, but he still averaged 20 points per game.
The two people that I think absolutely deserve to be mentioned if we're talking about coming into the season massively exceeding expectations are Dardoch and Matt. Because they were subs on a 10-man roster that we didn't even think were going to play, and they went on to put up 50-point weeks in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and there were definitely some people who picked them up one week and were like I'm gonna drop them for like a bigger name who was on the waiver wire. So who would you say, with that being said, from all of your individual team experience, who was your best pickup of the year? Somebody who was a free agent that you saw whether they were on another team and dropped, or somebody that you saw on the waiver wire and were like, I need this guy on my squad.
My roster was perfect. I literally didn't change my roster once the entire season.
Lies, you picked up Soaz.
No, but I picked up Soaz the last week because TSM is not that. That was the last week. But like looking at a player where I was like, damn, like I need this guy, didn't exist.
I didn't change my roster either.
Yeah, well, I mean,
It was pretty good.
Kyle
We have a
change your
3-way
roster?
tie. No, I didn't.
Hey, shade.
Shots fired.
But yeah, I didn't change mine, but we had a 3-way tie almost. But Lisa won by points, so.
So therefore, that's not a tie. She won.
Now
Wins, losses.
Now likes to call it a tie.
And wins, losses, it was a tie. But she beat me by 20 points.